to the Walk at Millennium Park. They can sponsor someone else.
Absolutely.
But I got to believe at some point the good old-fashioned cash donation is always helpful.
It's very helpful. We estimate there's about 3,000 people in West Michigan in the 12 counties we serve who have Down syndrome, and that every bit of that helps to expand our programming and help them with social opportunities, educational opportunities, and also to support their families.
Well, we wish you the best, Melissa. Thank you very much.
Clearly Community is a public affairs program of Clear Channel Media and Entertainment.
Clearly Community is brought to you by Huntington Bank. Welcome to Asterisk Free Checking. No gotcha fees, no asterisks. Only from Huntington.
Listen again next week at this time for another segment of Clearly Community right here on your favorite Clear Channel Media and Entertainment radio station.
Holland Hydroponic Outlet has it all. Complete light systems, hydroponics, ventilation, nutrients, and soil in Holland, Grand Haven, and South Haven. Check out Torched Glass Art Studio next to the Holland store, creating one-of-a-kind glass pipes.
Have you ever dreamed of working for yourself, owning your own business, and having the freedom to work when you want? We're the marketing arm of a $3 billion energy company, immediately looking to find a few entrepreneurs or business owners who can recognize a great opportunity. Rarely are there offerings like this to make a minimal investment with the ability to create significant earnings and wealth. Learn more about becoming a part of our team at ejobswestmichigan.com. We provide the training and support to help you succeed. What are you waiting for? ejobswestmichigan.com.
I knew I had a problem, but I didn't know what to do about it.
I tried counting calories, I took pills, eating, and then more eating.
I really wanted to stop, but nothing could make me stop.
At one point, it was so bad that I just felt like giving up.
I felt so alone.
Like nobody else could possibly understand.
We understand. We're Overeaters Anonymous, and we have helped thousands of people just like you. People who want to stop their compulsive eating and start living a healthy, rewarding life.
Overeaters Anonymous helped me get my life back.
Now I eat in a way that's healthy and good for me.
I never realized what I was missing out on.
With OA, I am living again and loving it.
Start living the life you deserve with help from Overeaters Anonymous. Find us on the web at oa.org.
This is Mike McCready, Pearl Jam's lead guitarist. Join me and help transform the lives of the 1.4 million Americans living with Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis. Sign up today for one of the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation's Take Steps walks at cctakesteps.org.
News Talk 1090 is the talk of Muskegon.
Well, you dadgum government, you sorry so-and-sos. You got your damn hands in every pocket of my clothes. Well, you
Good morning, Muskegon. This is EyeOnMuskegon, and I am back. Jim Riley, your host for this community conversation. With me, also back in Muskegon's Clear Channel studios, as always, the man, the legend, the
Oscar Osmo.
I'm back. If there were two O's in radio, Oscar would have been the reason for it. It's Oscar Osmo. And we've also got with us...
Brian knows me too well. That's why he's giggling. But anyway.
There we go. Well, that's the OO in Radio O. And also with us, Brian Wersham, Fruitport Township's supervisor, candidate for re-election, one that we wholeheartedly support here at EyeOnMuskegon. Of course, that means that you're doomed, Brian, but sorry about that.
Yeah, we're not going to have as friends.
What's your record? Now, wait a minute. Maybe I don't want this endorsement.
Actually, our record's pretty good. We did pretty well in the primary with a bunch of other folks. But anyway, we do have Brian Wersham, and not only as thank you for helping out as co-host, but coincidentally, some very big news, I'd say really, really significant news that was announced last week about the consolidation, or at least the potential consolidation of Fruitport's water department or not water department, but your ability to get water moving from Muskegon Heights to the Muskegon system. So we are going to talk about that in great depth in just a moment. Matter of fact, if you're interested in talking to Brian about that or anything else, or Oscar or myself, we do want you to phone in. Get your chance to be on the radio, folks. Our phone number remains 231-830-3109, and you can call when we are speaking in studio. We do have a guest coming up at the 9 o'clock hour another old friend, a great contributor to this show, Jack Spencer from the Mackinac Center. And we're going to talk a little more about these constitutional amendments, the ballot proposals that you will be voting on November 6th.
Is he in a good mood this time?
It's funny, when I talked with him last week to set him up for the show, he was actually his dauber was so down about this situation with the greed of the unions, in particular on these the home health care providers. He truly was down, and I asked him, I said, geez, you sound like you're depressed. He said, this is just, it's just really getting me down. And he's got a very good article that was written in the Detroit, I believe it was the Detroit News this past week, where they're interviewing some families and all, and we'll talk about that. But that'll happen at the 9 o'clock hour. But since Jack will be phoning in, you won't be able to phone in. So if you want to get in touch with us, pick up that phone quickly or wait until towards the end of the show. I've read this before, but please remember this, because the reason for this show is to bring to you information that you're probably not getting from any other source. And if the bad guys, and when I say the bad guys, I don't necessarily mean that the politicians are bad guys, but if people are able to spend money and have enormous amounts of power without your input, there is a tendency, there's sadly, a likelihood that they might decide to do some things that aren't necessarily to the best benefit of you. And the media has a very sacred and valuable duty to bring out that information. And as we've seen our newspapers and other media shrink in terms of their interest in outing these folks when they're spending your money and making poor decisions, our show here is just to help you a little bit here in the Muskegon area in the state of Michigan, and we're getting many people who are contacting us and giving us information about things. So please be aware. You've got to be knowledgeable. That's why we're talking about events coming up, elections, and politicians running. And if you've got information, give us a call. You can email me at EyeOnMuskegon@gmail.com, or you can give us a call directly here. But this is a quote, elections do have consequences, and those we elect are, and far too often re-elect, have forgotten how government works and for whom they work for, and that an ever-growing, power-hungry state and federal government are not the answer to the problem, but 80% of the time they are the problem. So I think many of us know that intrinsically, but if the media is going to tell us that things are going along just fine, we have a tendency to believe them. And I'll give you to me a great example, and it's an unfortunate one to me. It wasn't that long ago, sometime last year, or perhaps even earlier this year, I think it was last year, that the Muskegon Chronicle reporter was told by the county administrator, Bonnie Hammersley, and essentially by the Muskegon County Board of Commissioners, that they had changed insurance providers, and they were now able to provide essentially the same services for a significantly less amount. About $1 million was the amount that they had announced. And the Chronicle touted this, and it seemed to me, wow, that's a good move. And it was, in fact, it was a savings move. But what happens so often is that these elected officials, these leaders of our municipalities will tell us things. Nobody bothers to ask about follow-up. Well, Muskegon County has now on their website something called a dashboard. I'd recommend that you go to it. I've not spent an awful lot of time on it. But on the projected budget report, they have under central or under general government, it's $18.5 million dropped to $18 million and a little less than that. And it says, overall decrease significantly due to lower employer medical costs. And you say, wow, good for them. Well, the difference is it's about $400,000. And so they got the credit for the $1 million. Turns out to be only $400,000. But one of the things that they did, and this was not published, was last year when they when they made the change in the insurance, they said, hey, I know this is going to cost you folks a little bit more, so we're going to give every employer, just about every single employee, $600 to the tune of about $1 million. they gave them bonuses, and I believe that they just snuck that in this last budget that was voted on Thursday. I asked the county commissioner, I said, did they do this again? He said, I don't know. They haven't given me the information. It's already been voted on. So, again, they're voting for things that they don't even know what's in there. They're taking credit for things that they flat out did not do. As a matter of fact, this $400,000 savings, if the $600 per employee bonus to cover their increased whatever costs in insurance, that was $1 million. The net for this brilliant idea is about $500,000 to $600,000 more for the taxpayers in Muskegon County. So,
most politicians do that anyway. We can ask Brian that. I mean, they pretty much.
Well, I think here's the difference. We don't have people digging deeply into, in this case, Fruitport Township's finances, but we do have a township supervisor who has the same mindset and wants to make sure that they're doing crossing the T's, dotting the I's, and we know that, and maybe we'll get Brian to talk a little bit about some of that. But we are trying to provide that kind of information. If you've got any insights, obviously we want to hear from you. Hey, on this day in history, this is, I think, a really critically important, it's a moving day. Today is Gold Star Mother's Day. On the last Sunday of September every year, Gold Star mothers are mothers who have lost a son or a daughter in the military, and it's very moving for me. I know that I lost an uncle, and we've had many folks here who have lost family members to service-related deaths, and one of the things that they suggest that you might do to honor Gold Star mothers is to light a luminary in the evening on, in this case, September 30th this evening. So anyway, it's a very important day. I find it interesting. I'm going to move on from that. But after we have apparently an entire political party and much of the media who's interested in banning videos that are not illegal in our country, but that just apparently are offensive to murderers in other countries. But today we are celebrating Banned Books Week, which, of course, was supported by liberal folks who were hearkening back to the days when certainly the Nazis and others would burn books and ban books and how awful that was. And yet here we are at the beginning, day one of Banned Books Week, also celebrating the arrest and of somebody who's made a movie that for whatever reason is unpopular among Democrat politicians and much of the media. So there's your hypocrisy of the morning, I guess, which I don't think is going to end because there's lots of hypocrisy out there.
It's going to get worse.
It is. It's just going to get worse. It may very well be. Actually, it's funny we talk about hypocrisy. On this date in 1927, Babe Ruth hit the single-season home run record, of course, with the Tigers coming back. But the Babe set the record of 60 homers back in 1927. And then, of course, in 1961, somebody else broke his record. Who was that, Brian? Come on.
Don't know.
Oh, come on.
He's too busy reading something there.
No, I'm a big sports nut, but as far as records are concerned...
Yeah, I'm not a big,
Well, I'm not a big sports nut either.
Where's Jim Moyes when you need him?
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
There we go. Well, you've got Jim Riley here to help you out.
Okay.
Well, it was Mickey Mantle, which was very cool. Everybody loved the fact that Mickey Mantle broke the record. And then Roger Maris went out and broke the record. And because they had more playing days, they asterisked it for whatever reason.
It was Hank Aaron. That's the name that came to mind.
Well, Aaron did down the road.
But that was down the road.
Yeah,
quite a ways.
But it was really funny that Roger Maris goes out. They played more games, but they asterisked his record, and Roger really never got the credit. It was and there was the hypocrisy of the day. Hey, and I don't normally talk about this day in history for tomorrow, but I'm going to today because tomorrow, October 1st, 2012, is International Day of Older Persons. So celebrate yourself. If you're not old enough, you can celebrate me because I'm one of them. And also because we know that our First Lady is made tremendous efforts to slim and trim everybody in the country. tomorrow is World
Your
Vegetarian.
arms are looking much better.
Yeah, am I looking toned? Well, tomorrow is World Vegetarian Day, so eat a burger or some bacon or something today because you'll get those frowny looks from other people. Before I get to Brian's very specific and really breaking news here, I want to mention one other thing, and we sort of touched on it before, but this goes back to the hypocrisy, and it goes back to what I feel is unfortunate that our media is not covering really worthwhile stories. Last week, or it might have been a week and a half ago, Muskegon County commissioners voted to change their policy to allow county commissioners who had lost in their primaries to go to this junket, which costs somewhere in the neighborhood of $1,000 per commissioner. It's the Muskegon or the Michigan, the counties. They get together for a weekend of theoretically a brilliant analysis, and they come back with all these wonderful ideas to make counties more efficient, which apparently not too many are able to do that in Muskegon County. But there was a policy that said if you lose, if the voters have fired you, as Clint Eastwood says, if you're not doing the job, we got to let you go. And the Chronicle correctly reported that all the Democrats, including the two, Scott Plummer and Scott Plummer and Anthony Longmire, who had lost their primaries, they voted to change the policy to allow them to go. So in other words, they voted other people's money to change a policy. Well, all the Democrats voted to change the policy. The three Republicans there, Bob Skolnick, I don't believe, attended that meeting, but the other three Republicans voted against it. Well, it was reported that way. But what the Chronicle did not report, which I think is so critically important here, is that every single Democrat voted to change the policy and to reaffirm the policy last year. So these same two Democrat elected at one point and then fired at another who had voted, we don't want to let folks who have been fired by their constituents go spend more constituent money and go to this junket. A year later, when, they lost their primary, they decided, we're going to change our mind. And I can promise you, if it had been Republicans, it would never even been brought up, nor should it have been. But that's the hypocrisy. That's frankly the word of the day. That is what goes on in our county. It's your money. They change the rules willy-nilly when it suits their back pocket. And I don't think Roger Miller would be happy with that at all. And speaking of Roger Miller, there we go. We're going to come back and we're going to talk about this big water deal, which the Chronicle is just giddy. I mean, they're doing Snoopy dances out there. We're going to talk about
Snoopy dances
with and actually even Brian is doing a Snoopy dance. So we'll be back after this break.
Oh, don't you love me sometime?
Here where it all began, with the roots of soul on iHeartRadio.
Do you like good music?
The icons of R&B, from Aretha to Stevie, on one incredible station. James Brown, Al Green, Otis Redding, Sly and the Family Stone, The Drifters, and of course, Motown. Check out the roots of soul on iHeartRadio or at iHeartRadio.com.
I can solve difficult problems for a Fortune 500 company.
I can run a successful business.
I can manage your home improvements.
I can publicize your message.
I can motivate your audience.
I can put my military experience to work for your company.
I can teach your children.
I can boost your bottom line.
I can add value to your workplace.
I could be a loyal and productive employee.
But I can't put my skills to work for your organization
if I'm not given the opportunity.
If you don't recognize my talents and ability.
If you don't hire me.
If you don't have an open mind and a workplace that's open to everyone.
If you don't realize that America works best when everybody works.
What can you do?
What can you do?
What can you do?
You can remember that it worked.
It's what people can do.
It's what people can do that matters.
Nearly 50 million Americans have disabilities. Capitalize on their talents with employment practices that benefit everyone. Learn more at whatcanyoudocampaign.org.
If you love food and your heart, go grocery shopping with me, Mon, short for mono unsaturated fat.
And me, polyunsaturated.
We're the Better Fat Sisters. Over here in the cooking oil aisle, choose canola, olive, and other vegetable oils. Liquids are better for your heart than solid fats.
You'll also find us in fresh foods like avocados, nuts, and fish.
Before you put any baked goods, packaged, and prepared foods in your cart, read the labels.
Avoid our bad fats brothers, saturated and trans. They love to clog your arteries.
We're heart healthier, but let's face it, we're fats.
We all have the same 9 calories per gram, so watch your portions.
And thanks for shopping with us.
The Better Fat Sisters. Be kinder to your heart. Learn more and get recipes at heart.org/facethefats. Nationally sponsored by Canola Info.
24,000 children die every day from preventable causes. My name is Lawrence Fishburne, and I believe that number should be 0. Believe in 0.
Join the effort. Visit UNICEFUSA.org.
The Talk of Muskegon. News Talk 1090. WKBZ.
Well, you dadgum government, you sorry so-and-sos. You got your damn hands in every pocket of my clothes. Well, you dadgum,
Dadgum government, folks.
Quiet.
We are Snoopy dancing our way through the break, and among other things. Hey, we're back at EyeOnMuskegon.
He does that well, too, doesn't he?
Yes, he does.
He's a man of many talents.
Yeah, absolutely. And thankfully, because it's radio, you're not able to see many of those talents because it'll get us kicked off the air. But hey, Brian Wersham, among many other things, radio talk show host.
He's getting ready to. He's guzzling his Mountain Dew.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he's got that morning dew going. Okay, but you are Fruitport Township supervisor, and you are candidate to get reelected. So I think it's important that people know what's going on. But the big news is that you folks are changing your water situation here. Can you explain that?
Yeah. There's basically in the Muskegon metro area, which and the outlying areas of the core of Muskegon County, which should basically be around the city of Muskegon Heights. It wouldn't include Whitehall and Montague, but we all buy water from 2 water plants, 2 water sources here. One is owned by the city of Muskegon, one's owned by the city of Muskegon Heights. And there's been a push for a while. John Schneider started a push over 30 years ago in an attempt to unify the systems because, if people work together in volume, you can experience the benefit of volume. It isn't any different than anything else. You produce by volume, you lower costs. So there's been a push for 30 years to try to bring everybody together in a unified way. So Fruitport and Norton Shores exist as a single source of water to its customers. Big Smiley water tank that's in Fruitport. People don't realize that that's half owned by City of Norton Shores, because it does provide a significant amount of the pressure necessary to operate the City of Norton Shores' system.
Okay, but you've been buying your water though from Muskegon Heights for a very, very long time.
Yeah, the current contract we're in is 10 years into a 30-year contract, and we've been buying from them for decades prior to. It's always been a very difficult relationship with the city of Muskegon Heights, and once our water rates almost quadrupled over a 3-year period of time. It doubled and then went up another 50% of that new rate, and then up again over a 4-year period of time.
These are the rates that Muskegon Heights charges the township and the city of Norton Shores
as a wholesale.
And how you pass that on was a different issue. But
then it became more of difficulty in working with relationship. Then it became literally a financial situation, and there was a long lawsuit, involved 12 or 13 different points. There was money missing, just a lot of very strange things going on. The lawsuit was settled, and we had hoped that would be the stepping stone of moving forward and building a better working relationship. Well, it didn't. It actually it got worse.
Well, a lot of this focuses on, frankly, and you don't need to comment, but on trust between the three cities.
I'll comment on that, absolutely. If you don't trust a restaurant to go and that the food is safe to eat, do you go there?
No, you don't.
If you don't trust...
you're not concerned about this is not a safety issue, though.
No,
but it's a trust issue.
It is just a generalized trust.
Yes.
So back about 18 months ago, Fruitport gave notice and invoked a clause within our contract, a 4-year separation notice. Now, what people don't really understand is that 4-year notice was a contract termination clause. It didn't mean that we were necessarily leaving the city of Muskegon Heights as far as a water provider. It simply was a termination of the contract, which then meant we had to start finding a new contract for water. So then we began a process in attempting to communicate with the Heights to renegotiate the existing contract and withdraw the clause, start up the design of a brand new long-term contract. We made dozens and dozens of attempts to communicate with them. They refused. They absolutely refused to even communicate with us. Their leadership. We did finally get some staffing communication going on, and they went through a short process of, this is kind of what we need, and everything came back, nope. I mean, just absolute flat out no. And most of the stuff we were asking for was standard accounting principles that are applied everywhere in the world.
Okay, so you've this has been going on for a long time, and we're running a little out of time, and we will after we speak with Jack Spencer come back.
All right, bottom line is that fell apart. We looked at a new plant, and we looked at the other water source, and over the past several months, Fruitport North Shores and the city of Muskegon, through relationship building, have developed a contract to provide a unified water system across Muskegon County that should lower rates and provide rate stabilization for the next several decades. And it is an absolute outstanding step in cooperation and collaboration here in Muskegon County. And it's an outstanding step in the right direction, and we could be more excited about it. Let me just
jump on this, and I'd like to come back afterwards, because not to take away from the concept of of scale and isn't it wonderful we're all collaborating and all this kind of stuff, but this wouldn't happen. Your opportunity with that Norton Shores and Fruitport Township would not be available if there wasn't competition. And I do worry. Now, the good news is you had, because there was competition, you had one good management and one bad management. And hopefully that would continue, the good management or the relatively good management would continue from Muskegon. But again, if competition is generally good and it allows for people who are unhappy with that restaurant or that grocery store to go to another one, there is a huge downside to collaboration when you only have the one. And
after the top of the hour guest, bring that back up, because there's a unique situation when it comes to enterprise funds like water or sewer systems. And I can talk about that.
Good.
And show you how it does truly work.
And we're going to continue. We will be able to continue the Snoopy dance then with grand news. And actually, we'll probably need some upbeat, because after talking with Jack Spencer and getting the information on some of these the proposals coming up, we're going to need to be happy. We'll be back after the break.
Green Lantern H2O, West Michigan's premier horticulture supply store, is celebrating 1 year in business. Stop in and learn what being part of a farmer's co-op can do for your pocket. Get rooted and grow together. Located on Laketon Avenue and US 31 in Muskegon.
We've got all these credit card bills. We've got to find a way to get out from under this debt.
The National Foundation for Credit Counseling is a nonprofit organization that has been helping people for 60 years. Speak with a counselor at 800-388-2227 or visit debtadvice.org. This is a public service campaign for the NFCC.
They don't have to die, but they do. 24,000 children every day. My name is Orlando Bloom, and I believe that number should be 0. Believe in zero. Join the effort. Visit unicefusa.org.
Army Specialist Andrew Pike was paralyzed by a sniper while serving in Iraq. Paralyzed Veterans of America helped Andy get the auto, housing, and vocational benefits he earned. You can help our paralyzed veterans. Visit.
Her voice was like no other. Her life and career were short, crazy, but her music lives on decades later.
Crazy for feeling so lonely.
Patsy Cline Radio, a station dedicated to country music's first female icon.
We're walking after midnight.
Hear Patsy Cline Radio on iHeartRadio or at iHeartRadio.com.
America had just gone to war when Felipe Adams volunteered.
I knew what I was signing up for. I knew the consequences. I took a bullet to the side and left me paralyzed.
For Armando de la Rosa, the Navy was a chance to serve and see the world.
I got medically discharged in 2001.
Armando and Felipe were brought together by a unique organization that serves our paralyzed veterans.
If there was no PVA, it'd be a lot of confusion. Our training is to better the veteran. We help out with the auto grant, the special housing adaptation grant, education, prosthetics. Our main focus is spinal cord injury and disease, but we see anybody.
First thing he had asked me before he even asked my name was I being taken care of as a veteran? And I thought that was pretty good.
Changing lives, building futures. That's Paralyzed Veterans of America. To learn more, visit PVA.org.
Cold steel, rough concrete, tough plastic, synthetics. Today's world is enough to make us lose our real sense of touch and feel hundreds of miles away from nature. Luckily, that's not the case. There are places all around where you can get in touch with nature. At the National Wildlife Refuges. Here you can experience the warm, inviting touch of nature at every turn. Feel the smooth, gentle bark of a white birch tree on your fingertips. Walk barefoot on the smooth, water-worn river stones. Feel the soft moss lining the towering wall of limestone. When you feel these things, you're feeling the world the way we found it. With over 500 refuges across America, you don't have to go far to make a special connection with nature. Learn more at fws.gov/refuges. That's fws.gov/refuges.
This is Mike McCready, Pearl Jam's lead guitarist. For the last 24 years, I've been living with Crohn's disease, a chronic and often painful digestive disease. Luckily, I have my disease under control. But so many of the 1.4 million Americans living with Crohn's and a similar disease called ulcerative colitis live day to day not knowing when their disease will strike next. You can help by joining one of the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation's 130 Take Steps walks. Sign up today at cctakesteps.org. Take a step, register today.
It's your car. You take it to people you trust.
You're what rip out your linkages. That's just an estimate, little lady.
They're your children. You want to keep them safe.
Hey, kids, shut your traps!
It's your health. You want a doctor with experience.
Hey, Joan, I'm Skip, and I'll be your doctor today.
I'm fine. Thanks.
It's your finances. You want to go to the experts.
It's quick and easy. Cut your payments by 50%.
Go to people with experience, real people you can trust.
We've got to find a way to get out from under this debt.
We can help.
The National Foundation for Credit Counseling is a nonprofit organization that has been helping people for 60 years. Our certified counselors can help you eliminate your debt and teach you ways to stay out of debt. Speak with a counselor today at 800-388-2227 or visit debtadvice.org. National Foundation for Credit Counseling. Real solutions for real people. This is a public service campaign for the NFCC.
Rock 1090 is the talk of Muskegon.
Well, you dadgum government, you sorry so-and-sos. You got your damn hands in every pocket of my clothes. Well, you
And we are back at EyeOnMuskegon, Muskegon's #1 rated political investigation show. I guess that's what we're going to call it today.
Ooh, sounds like a CSI kind of thing.
Well, it is sort of. It is sort of CSI. I mean, let's face it. The body. We've seen the body, and it resides at the county building.
We can have Brian do the Snoopy dance and the whole thing.
Yeah, we got Snoopy dance. Yeah, we were. We've got with us Jack Spencer, who is the Capital Affairs Specialist for the Muskegon Capital Confidential, which is under the aegis of the Mackinac Center. Good morning, Jack.
Good morning. I think you said Muskegon Capital Confidential, but
it's a Michigan.
Uh-oh. Is there any way we can put this all on tape delay and fix my gaffes before they get out?
You would have told me before I could have put it on tape delay.
There we go. Okay, well, thank you for correcting me. Yes, it is Michigan Capital Confidential. And the reason, Jack, we're talking about Snoopy Dance is that we have in Muskegon County 2 providers of water for the various municipalities, Muskegon Heights and the city of Muskegon. And Brian Wersham is the township, Fruitport Township supervisor, and he, along with some others, are making a very significant change from Muskegon Heights, who had provided their water to the city of Muskegon, and the local newspaper and all of the consolidators and collaborators are just giddy and dancing the Snoopy dance and just having a wonderful time because they love the concept of single source efficiency that certainly the Soviet Union so wonderfully proved works out so wonderfully well. But then we actually, in this case, I think this is a good move. But anyway, that's not what we're talking to Jack Spencer about. But actually, I guess we sort of are talking about single source stuff because some of these ballot initiatives that are coming up in November will reduce choices for a lot of folks. And Jack, let's start off with the one that I know that keeps you up at night and makes you grumpy, and that is the proposal, which is actually a constitutional amendment that seems to me to be a wonderful idea. It's gonna give home health care providers higher standards. It's going to provide better care for the people who are in need of care, and it will allow what is a God-given right, certainly in Michigan, a God-given right for collective bargaining for public employees. So what's wrong with this?
You're talking about Proposal 4, I believe?
You might view it differently, but yes, it is Proposal 4, which according to the ballot initiative page that I'm looking at, it says would give home health care providers limited collective bargaining rights.
Well, it's an interesting one because what this is, and I've written this previously, all the other issues on the ballot, no matter how upset people can get about them or how they could be for or against, all the other issues are basically are issues that at the end of the day people can say this is a real issue that we had a disagreement on. Proposal 4 is a scam. It's a continuation of a scam that was perpetrated 7 years ago to bring the union, SEIU, money out of what they call home health care workers. It's people in the home health program, which has been around for 31 years, to allow the union to get dues out of their Medicaid checks. The legislature became aware of it. Finally, a couple years ago, they tried to get rid of it in 2011. The union proceeded to actually pay money to the dummy employer used in the scam to keep it going, and then this year they just plain passed a law to outlaw it, and the governor signed it. So this is one where, again, as a reporter, my main concern is, do people know what these things are? If they know what they are and they still vote for them, there's a certain level there where you say, okay, hey, if they knew it and this is what they wanted, fine. But people should understand collective bargaining. There's no collective bargaining. If you understand the scam, it's a collective bargaining agreement that would say, Jack Spencer gets money from Mackinac Center. That's who he works for. But I have a collective bargaining agreement with Jim Riley.
Ooh, so I would get checks. I like that.
Yeah, and so I sit there, and you and I get a collective bargain. We have nothing collective bargaining about because you don't control anything. You have no power over what my paycheck is, and that's part of the scam. But there's literally a phony collective bargaining agreement that all starts with the dummy employer that was made up, that was put in place for all of these people across the state. All of this was done with the news media frozen out back in 2005. It's amazing. They've gotten away with this for 7 years.
Let me ask you this, Jack. An argument might be that okay, I'm in this union, and maybe I mistakenly didn't vote last time around, but every so often we get a chance to vote again if we want to stay in the union, right? Don't these folks have an opportunity to get out of this scam?
No, they would if Michigan was a right-to-work state.
Okay, so they're locked in essentially for life.
You can get out of the union. This is a big verbal trick that's used quite often. You can get out of the union if you want to. You can stop paying dues, but the real trick is you still have to pay an administrative fee they call fair share, which is almost as much as the dues.
Okay, so there's no escaping. Well, what bothers me, and this is why one of the reasons that we're talking with you, is that if we when folks get into the ballot area, when they're getting ready to make their vote, this proposal, which is again Proposal 4, is very benign, and I'm going to read the 4 points that you will see if you go into the voting box and read this. Quote, this proposal would, 1, allow in-home care workers to bargain collectively with the Michigan Quality Home Care Council, continue the current exclusive representation of in-home care workers until modified in accordance with labor laws. That's item 1. Item 2, require the MQHCC, that council, to provide training for in-home care workers, create a registry of workers who pass background checks and provide financial services to patients who manage the cost of in-home care. 3, preserve patients' rights to hire in-home care workers who are not referred from this registry, who are bargaining unit members. And 4, authorize the Michigan Quality Home Care Council to set minimum compensation standards in terms and conditions of employment. That sounds pretty good if you don't know you don't have any sense of the background.
Well, this is the point. I would argue that Proposal 2 and Proposal 4 bother me an awful lot in terms from a reporter's viewpoint of, are people going to understand what they're voting on?
Yeah.
And that's the thing, again, if people understand it and however they vote, at least they understood it. And 2 and 4, I think, are the ones where you can make a pretty good argument that people, I don't think they even begin. I listened to a radio show here in Lansing a couple of days ago where they're talking about Proposal 4, and I think the radio announcer, frankly, was really trying to make an honest effort to represent this. And it's almost impossible to unless you understand it. You don't know what to ask. You talk about collective bargaining being part of it. Well, you have to have followed the scam to understand that, no, there's nobody the union can collective bargain with.
Let me just give my little snapshot of this again, because I don't think we can tell the story too many times, because, as you say, it is complicated. But essentially what happened was the unions got together with the Granholm administration some years back and sent out a postcard to people who were getting Medicaid, I believe it was, and in order to provide home health care, usually almost exclusively to family members, and none of whom were in unions. And most people got this oddly worded postcard talking about unions and just threw it out, not thinking that there was anything going on. Well, it turns out a percentage, something under 10% of the people who got these postcards did vote because they were on the inside. They knew what was going on. They said, let's be in a union. And then all of a sudden, the people who were providing home health care to family members found that their checks were smaller because union dues were being taken out, and they'd never realized that they'd voted for this to be members of this union. Am I correct on that?
Yes, you're right about that. And I would make the argument, well, first of all, that's a thumbnail portrait, because we still have the problem whether a third of these people ever even received this postcard you're talking about.
Oh, that's true. That was a scam to begin with.
Part of the incredible way this played out. But the thing is, if you're a reporter and you don't know what this is, what's going on here, you hear that, you understand it, you then turn around and talk to the other side, and the other side says, well, these people have received 3 pay increases since this happened. Well, if you don't understand it, you don't know how to counter that because you haven't followed it.
Well, that's new to me. Tell me about the 3 pay increases that theoretically
Well, I think
they got.
if you check with welfare recipients or anybody else, there have been increases over a period of time. It has nothing to do with this, but you see how they word it?
Oh,
they
I
have
see.
received 3 pay increases since this happened.
They had nothing to do with any union contract. They had to do with the fact that the checks coming from the federal government just went up.
Well, 2 of them had to do with minimum wage increases, and the other one had to do with Jennifer Granholm.
Okay, all right. So in other words, they had nothing to do with it. I want to touch base on this because there was a very good article in the Detroit News, and unfortunately, I don't have the date on it, but I think it was in the past week. But it talks. They interview you, and they talk about this a gentleman who is a in-home health care provider. Name is Stephen Glossop, and I'm going to just read a couple of sentences from this. It said, Stephen Glossop moved back in with his mom, Linda, 4 years ago after she had a stroke when she was recovering from heart surgery. She needed constant care, and he decided to move back in. The Glossops, apparently he and his wife moved back, by virtue of getting Medicaid money from the state, are members of the SEIU, thanks to a unionization scheme orchestrated in 2005 under Jennifer Granholm. Quote, this is from Mr. Glossop, who's the gentleman who's on the front line. He is the gentleman who's providing the home health care to his mother. Quote, this whole thing just gets me. It's hard to believe the union could get away with something like this. The union can't do anything about things like working conditions. They have no idea what goes on inside our house each day. I'd say the biggest effect that being in this union has had on me is them taking money from our checks. To me, it's just thievery. And that seems to me to tell the story even far better than anybody else, because here's somebody who's actually been forced into this scam union and is actually having less money. Matter of fact, the amount that have been taken from these people who are providing this service, again, to mostly family members, it's well over $30 million that have been taken out of their pockets and given to the SEIU union, and they have mostly given it to Democrat politicians to continue the scam. Am I right on that?
Yeah, how it works is with any union, and you have to study this a little bit to find out, but with any of these unions like SEIU, the local union collects. They're heading toward $32 million on this right now.
Oh, gosh.
The local union collects, and then they have to pay dues. The union has to turn around. The local union has to turn around and pay dues to the National Union Center in D.C. So they have to turn around and give about $7 out of every 11 to the big union back in D.C. who spends it however they want to.
And we know that they're very clearly and openly, and at least honestly in this sense, they are supporting Democrat politicians who support this kind of scam in other forms. Let's go to Proposal 2. This is the one that, again, in somewhat bland verbiage, says would make collective bargaining a right for public and private workers. That doesn't seem to be on its face all that awful.
If you end it right there, then I think it would be what the proponents of it say it is. But it goes on. They try to claim this is simply about guaranteeing the right to collective bargain, making it a right in the Constitution. Unfortunately, or however you want to look at it, the proposal language does not end there. The rest of the language, number one, it sounds fairly benign, but what it does is it basically locks in all kinds of previous contract agreements that have been made over the years into the Constitution. For instance, they passed a law last year at the state legislature saying that when teachers are laid off, the schools have the right to base the layoff, who does and doesn't get laid off, based on the teacher's performance. Well, this is something the unions have been against for a long time, and it had written in contracts that it was strictly on union seniority. And I think the question is, those kinds of things, you put them on the ballot. I think the question of can you lay teachers off and consider their performance first as to who does and doesn't get laid off. I suspect there's a good chance people would vote in favor of that. But you don't see those kinds of things anywhere in the ballot language.
Well, as a matter of fact, let me read the ballot language on that particular issue. It says, override state laws that regulate hours and conditions of employment to the extent that those laws conflict with collective bargaining agreements. So in other words, if in fact the state says, we got to fix this because we're losing, as we continue to lose the jobs and businesses, we're going to fix this with elected state legislators. They're not going to be able to do it. There's also another part in there that sort of goes along with it. It says, invalidate existing or future state or local laws that limit the ability to join unions and bargain collectively. So in other words, if there's any laws that change, this is in the Constitution. This means that we will never have the opportunity to be a right-to-work state, to even have our legislators vote on it. Is that correct?
Exactly. And again, right to work, this is the thing where you can get out and not have to pay union fees. You can get out of a union if you want to and not have to pay union fees, which is what would make the state a right-to-work state. We're
That's
not a
choice,
right-to-work state right now.
Isn't that choice? Don't many of our friends on the left say that they're all for choice?
Well, all I can tell you is that you're not going to be able to do it if this passes. And again, the problem I have as a reporter is, do voters know that? If voters want that, fine. But the problem is, we know with the polling that if right to work was put on the ballot, there's a very good chance it would pass. And yet, here is a proposal that people are going to be voting on, and there's nowhere in there for them to know this would basically preempt Michigan from ever becoming a right-to-work state.
Yeah, let me clarify that a little bit, just to say it in a different way. If the legislators and the governor agreed to vote on and pass the right-to-work law, they couldn't, because the Constitution prohibits their voting on that. So I can see that many politicians, many of our state reps and state senators, Republicans included, would be very happy to have this constitutional amendment, because that would then keep them from having to make what might be a painful vote, right?
You could make that argument, but, at the end of the day, the best way to describe it is it gives union bosses a veto over anything in this area, collective bargaining or anything else that the legislature or the governor wants to do. They have a final veto. It turns the Constitution into a great big collective bargaining contract.
Yeah, and it certainly would not be welcomed by business owners and people thinking about moving or expanding their businesses in the state of Michigan, would it?
I would think that that's going to make it rather problematic. You try to envision what the state would be like with this, and you could make the argument that it means basically the state just stays the way it's been for the last 30 years, because they're locking in all these agreements that have been made to the advantage of the union for the past 30 years.
And again, this is not simply a law. This is not a proposal. This is a constitutional amendment to our state constitution. One of the other items, again, you'll see this if you go online to look at your ballot. You'll see it in the ballot box. But the final one, it says, it defines, quote, define employer as a person or entity employing one or more employees. So in theory, if you have one employee, that employee could say, hey, I want to be in a union, and you're going to have to negotiate with me. Is that correct?
Yeah, you wonder why they put that in there. They want to include, obviously, you're talking about a lot of small businesses being affected by this, I would think.
Well, it doesn't even say businesses. I mean, theoretically, if you hired a kid to rake the lawn on a regular basis, or to mow the lawn twice a week, or to every other week, in theory, the kid could come to you and say, "Hey, here's the deal." Anyway, like you say,
Jim, don't give him more ideas, okay?
There you go. Right. Well, he gets his lawn cut twice a week, so that's pretty good. You're a big spender.
Actually, I looked at Oscar's face, because he's thinking of unionizing right here.
That's right. Here you go.
Board operators,
board operator unions, and the big blow up at the right to carry.
Extra gas coverage for
Well, again, as you said, Jack, and thank you for your attempts to bring the word out. They are so wonderfully written and so attractively written that the average person, unless they get a little sense of context, isn't going to know what's going on. And of course, if you've seen the ads, the one that got me was. There was a sheriff, must have been a county sheriff, a nice-looking guy, in one of the ads for the home health care scam. These are really good ads that are written in favor of at least I believe the most onerous and despicable of these proposals. Let's talk about another one, because you and I kind of disagree on this one, which is great, which is Proposal 5, which would would require an increase in state taxes to be supported by 2/3 of the majority in the legislature, or a statewide vote. What seems to me that's a good idea.
Well, I don't know whether it's a good idea or a bad idea, but I can tell you that my perception of it, having covered the legislature closely here in Lansing, is I'm not convinced it's going to make a lot of impact. Now, it has nothing to do whether you vote yes or no on it. But just keep in mind, California has the same thing. It has had it for years.
Okay, then how did California get so broke?
Because lawmakers and legislatures always can figure out ways around these things. So it's more of a question of impact. It's you look at this, is it a for or against? First of all, Mackinac Center technically doesn't ever say for or against, but on the other hand, you also take a look at it and you go, okay, how impactful will this be? And you look at it and you say, well, what's a tax? You know, we have in this state, for instance, a lot of talk constantly about raising the increase of the gas tax, but technically, a lot of people claim that's a fee.
Okay. What would be defined by a tax or as a tax? Well, there is some talk about raising the state sales tax, which by definition is a tax, and many of us are saying, well, I don't really want a state sales tax increase. I would like I'd like to see that you have to have 2/3 of the elected representatives to vote for that. That seems to me to be a good idea. If you don't like more taxes.
If you don't like more taxes, I think that's kind of what I'm saying. It's fairly obvious if you are going to tend to like this, that it's for people who don't want more taxes.
Well, but
more likely would look at it.
Don't most people in the state, at least the taxpayers, don't most people in the state say, look, I'm not for more taxes?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the voters and the citizens have been kind of loud about that.
Yeah, and it's just, there's no reason, I'm not saying vote yes or no on it, but what I'm saying is, if you're expecting it to have this massive impact, I think you may be disappointed.
Oh, okay. All right. But do you see any significant downside on this?
The one part that has been argued is that if this had been the situation with, for instance, Reagan's tax cut in the early 80s, it's arguable that he might not have been able to do it.
That's interesting. Okay.
You got to remember, it was overall a big tax cut, but it included rearranging the taxes, which meant some went up.
Oh, so if you had an omnibus bill that overall reduced reduced taxes in a variety of ways, but one portion of it increased taxes, then that entire bill would require 2/3?
Yes.
So that'd be the poison pill, essentially.
And that's and it didn't have to be written that way, by the way. But again, I don't necessarily subscribe completely to that because, as you can tell, I believe the legislature largely could get around it anyway.
Okay, all right. So you don't see it would be awful. You don't see it would be great. Vote on it if that's what you want. This particular proposal is also a constitutional amendment, is it not?
Yeah, and I will say this, out of all of these proposals, it is the one that you could argue at least it's the kind of thing you would put in a constitution.
Okay. All right, and I would agree. Now, right off the top of my head, I don't know, but I believe 5 of the 6 are constitutional amendments and 1 is not. Am I right on that?
Yeah, well, you're talking about the emergency manager, number 1.
Okay, and that is not a constitutional amendment.
And that really brings up a funny situation because it's a referendum, which means what you vote on when you go to vote on it is exactly the legislation that the legislature voted on. It is saying, okay, we don't like this law that the legislature passed. And ironically, the way you do that is you put that actual law on the ballot, and the people either vote it up or down. And that's why this one gets real confusing, because the people who put this on the ballot, therefore, have to get their folks that agree with them to vote no.
Okay.
Is that upside down enough for you?
Okay, but yes, it is. And even I am looking at the ballot verbiage right now. If you like the emergency manager law as passed and was law up until just a judge threw it out just recently, if you like the emergency manager law, do you vote yes for this?
You vote yes.
Okay. All right, I got you.
Which is, again, I kind of think they should separate referendums from proposals on the ballot, but that's just my personal opinion.
Okay, and this is a referendum. Okay, and the proposals you say are what they call the constitutional amendment proposals.
Yes,
I got you. All righty. Well, Jack, thank you again. Very helpful. We will certainly have you back. You guys really do the yeoman's work. You do more than that. And the Mackinac Center, send them a check. Send Jack a check. You know,
what's the score then? So on all the proposals, what's the score?
Okay, yeah, Jay, you want to just do run 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on at least how Jack would suggest?
Well, no, I can't do that. Again, I can just tell you what they are. I can tell you that 2, 3, and 4. The campaign that's been against them has consistently, and you may have seen this, asked the question, do these belong in the Constitution?
All right, I'm going to say 2, 3, and 4 vote against them if you ever hope for any young people to get jobs in this state.
Those are the 2, 3, and 4, and I can tell you, this is sheer political analysis, you can bet that way of attacking them was focus grouped.
Okay, yeah, you mean the way they were written and advertised and everything else?
Yeah, the way that the group that's against those proposals.
Okay, that's okay.
They're not just, people may scratch their head and say, why are they going at it that way? Well, that's what they found. They with focus groups was the most effective.
All right, so you've got 2, 3, and 4. You suggest, and I would, well, you don't suggest, but I'm going to suggest that they would make running a business much more expensive and much more challenging. Proposal 1, you say, hey, if you like the emergency managers, vote yes. If you don't, vote no.
Yeah, if you can understand that's going to be crazy. I think that the people who put it on the ballot are now spending all their time turning around and having to explain to their people how they're supposed to vote no on it.
Well, the biggest thing with and just for one point of clarification, I would add the emergency manager law essentially is not significantly different from the way it was before. The biggest difference is it allowed the emergency manager to break these union contracts that caused the bankruptcy of the municipality or the school system to begin with.
It gives them that tool that really, yes, when they were being sent in previously, here's the biggest thing that's keeping you from being able to make the place solvent. You can't do anything about it.
Yeah, so it brings us back to a situation where nobody can come in and fix the Heights because it's unfixable. The Heights school system and others. Okay, the other two, we talked about Proposal 5, which is the 2/3 majority, and the final one is the bridge, which is again kind of simple. It just says proposal to amend the state constitution regarding construction of international bridges and tunnels. I suspect probably will be a meaningless vote, but it says that if in fact there is we're going to build a bridge or a tunnel, that the citizens have a right to vote on it before they go spend the money.
Yes, and this is a continuation of the legislative battle, which the governor lost, and then the governor started looking for other ways to possibly get the bridge. When I came to Mackinac Center, one of the first things they told me, I came from an insider political newsletter, one of the first things they told me was, we're not particularly involved with this bridge thing. And I said, great, because after watching the whole battle for actually, people don't realize this battle's been going on for over a decade. Frankly, I ended up feeling like, geez, I don't see anybody wearing white hats in this thing at all. So it's one that's real easy for me to be neutral on.
Okay, and again, the ads are out there and they're very confusing. I would tend to suggest we vote yes on this. One of the things that has not been brought up is the fact that while the Maroons may not be the poster children of openness and honesty and everything else, they have a successful monopoly, or at least somewhat of a monopoly, and they do ultimately employ people and pay taxes. We know taxes on the profits. We know that the bridge, however it's managed, just like the Blue Water Bridge and the tunnel, don't pay taxes. They're miserably managed. And do we really want to have another similar management style? But that's my own personal view. So.
Well, very good. I can tell you from watching it 10 years, to me this is the classic poster child of why state departments should not get involved with promoting things.
Yeah.
They started promoting it back in 2001, I think before Governor Engler had even left, and they just made it so difficult for lawmakers coming in afterward to ever look at their numbers and say that these are credible numbers, because when you've been actively advertising something, how can you believe the advertiser?
It's a tough one for all of us. You've made it a lot clearer. We will continue to try to bring clarity to tough political choices for all of us. Jack Spencer at Mackinac Center, thank you so much. Have a great week, and we will be back after this break, folks.
Oh, don't you love me sometime?
Hunters, take aim on huge savings at Factory Surplus Sales. Low Factory Surplus prices on Scentlock, Walls, Muck, Lacrosse, Carhartt, and more. Plus, Factory Surplus Sales has fall apparel for the entire family. Factory Surplus Sales in Montague.
The big sale is on at Benton Chevrolet Cadillac GMC's Used Car Supercenter. Benton is overstocked with the largest selection of trade-ins from our model year and clearance event big sale. Shop the largest selection of GM certified vehicles with 1.9% financing. Plus, every pre-owned vehicle sold, Benton will give you a free $300 gas card. Shop the largest selection of 2010, 2012 new body style Chevy Equinox starting as low as $14,900. Shop the 2010 through 2012 Chevy Malibu starting at $13,900. Nobody in Michigan sells more pre-owned vehicles than Benton's Used Car Supercenter. We sell more, you save more. Right now is the time to get rock-bottom prices. Plus, Benton has authorized their staff to pay even more for your trade. Bring your title and get ready to trade up and save thousands. Shop our giant 20-acre motor mall, only at the Benton Chevrolet Cadillac GMC Used Car Supercenter, both sides of Henry Street, Muskegon. It's where Michigan shops. Benton.
I shoved the envelope under my sweater and sneaked to the kitchen. Mom was on the phone in the front room. I didn't want to have to explain anything. I just wanted to be by myself. Clutching the envelope tightly, I stepped onto the ladder at the bottom of the treehouse. Something caught my eye above me, and I looked up. Light! It looked as if there were a firework display going on inside the treehouse. Crackling and snapping and whizzing sounds spun around above my head. Lights shot out and sparks dancing to the popping of noise. My first thought was to scream fire and run to the house to get Mom. My legs trembled as I inched upward, creeping up the rungs as quietly as I could. My heart banged so hard that it felt as if someone were hitting my chest. A couple more steps, and then I leaned forward, craning my neck to look inside. And then I looked up and saw... To find out what happens next, read Philippa Fisher's Fairy Godsister by Liz Kessler. Explore new worlds and check out more cool books at your local library. And visit read.gov. Brought to you by the Library of Congress and the Ad Council.
Ever try to make up cool band names? Like Corkscrew Mutiny, Ricky's Rhinestone Motion, the Drive Less Save More program. Okay, maybe Drive Less Save More isn't the coolest band name, but it's a darn good name for a money-saving program from Esurance. See, the less you drive, the more you save on car insurance. Très apropos. That's a decent band name. That's insurance for the modern world. Esurance, now backed by Allstate. Click or call.
Savings based on annual mileage could be from 0 to 15%, only in California.
Hi, my name's Bob.
Hi, Bob. I see this ad on TV. Says I can reduce my debt by 50%. I call. They told me to stop paying my bills, stop talking to my creditors. They'd take care of everything.
I gave them thousands, but most of it went to their fees.
Getting out of debt is neither quick nor easy. There are those who will tell you anything to win your trust.
I'm more in debt now because the fees and interest on my cards kept piling up.
Talk to your creditors directly, or to find a nonprofit agency near you, visit debtadvice.org.
24,000 children die every day from preventable causes. My name is Liam Neeson, and I believe that number should be zero. Believe in zero.
Join the effort. Visit.
Here's the official News Talk 1090 WKBZ forecast for today. Sunny to partly cloudy skies at a high of 68. Northeast winds 5 to 10. Mainly clear skies tonight, a low around 45. Northeast winds 5 to 10. Partly cloudy skies in the morning tomorrow, then becoming cloudy in the afternoon with a high of 68. And considerable cloud cover expected tomorrow night with a chance of a rain shower, low of 50. Then times of clouds and sunshine on Tuesday with a high around 70. News Talk 1090, the talk of Muskegon.
Well, you dadgum government, you sorry so-and-sos. You got your damn hands in every pocket of my clothes. Well, you
And we're back at EyeOnMuskegon as we continue our quest
Brian's
for
karaoke
knowledge. Yes. Brian's cooking here. We got Brian
Got Mountain Dew in me.
Yeah. The Mountain Dew is finally kicking in. Brian,
Let's go.
Brian is back. Hey, I want to before we get I want to go back to talking with Brian Wersham about this whole water deal. I would like to just give one little point. A lot of people ask, why do we have all of these initiatives? And in many cases, or at least in some cases, it's clear that these will not be passed. There is an additional reason why special interest groups driven by their own greed, by their own self-interest, whether it's left or right, but they are driven by their own self-interest, is they will put on an initiative for the people to vote, not necessarily expecting it to win, but in order to galvanize their base to come out and vote. And it's very clear with these, at least two of these 6 initiatives, that these initiatives are intended to get anybody who is very pro-union to make sure that you vote. Nothing wrong with that. But I think it's important, people say, oh, that lost, that was good for us, or that won, it was good for us. No, the intent was already made. The voters went out and voted. So the left does it more often than the right does it also. So anyway, just be aware that's what's going on in the world of politics.
And speaking of left and right.
Well, speaking of, actually, I would say, and I'm obviously very prejudiced in this, but I think Brian is really somebody whose politics is very hard for me to discern, because he seems like an honest guy, which makes sense.
I've known Brian for more years than you, and I can say that to be a fact. I think as far as an honest guy, here's your guy right here. But
thanks.
People think of me as honest, which they don't know much.
Ooh, I just dropped that $100 bill Brian slid me. Hold on, I've got to be right back. Just so people know that Brian is in a you will have a challenger in the election on November 6th as Fruitport Township Supervisor, and make sure that if you're interested in continuing what I think most of us believe is excellent leadership in that township, that you vote for Brian Wersham. That's another $100. This is great. Yeah. So.
And I've known him since the 90s, so I've made quite a bit of money by now.
Okay, hey, let's get back.
I got to keep up with my friend payments.
Let's get back to what I believe would be a reason to reelect Brian, which is his efforts in cooperation with Gary Nealon over at Norton Shores, and obviously very complex discussions to make a very significant change for the folks in Fruitport Township.
When we were talking earlier, you had brought up a point as far as we're basically eliminating the competition side of things, and Is that inherently going to drive up rates when there's no competition? And in this particular situation, that's not the case. And there's several factors. In the situation that Fruitport and Norton Shores currently exists for water at this time, that the rate could be artificially inflated, and it was significantly artificially inflated for the last several years. And that is the reason why we are where we are today.
And it was legally inflated.
It was. I mean,
because of the contract, they could do whatever they want within certain bounds.
Correct.
The Muskegon Heights was able to do that.
Right. Well, irregardless, it was artificially inflated, and on top of that, we were paying a 25% surcharge on an artificially inflated budget. And we, as leaders of our communities, just couldn't sit by and allow this to happen to our customers, to our water customers.
Now, I want to jump in here. Correct me if I'm wrong on this, but that was because whoever wrote that contract representing Norton Shores and Fruitport Township wrote a contract. You hired a lawyer. They wrote a contract, which the Heights and you guys all agreed upon and signed. That was, frankly, a poorly written contract.
Oh, it was. It definitely was. But there was also some other things that were going on, which resulted in a long-term lawsuit with, I believe it was 12 points within the lawsuit, of which Fruitport and Norton Shores prevailed on 11 of the 12 points within that.
Okay, so there were some violations even of the contract.
Correct.
Absolutely. Okay.
And then, but the court did determine that based on the contract that the Heights could set the rate as they saw fit. That was the one point that they did prevail on. There are other issues related to that, but it goes back to, like you said earlier, it was a trust issue. And we had to end this poorly written contract and make an attempt to move forward in one way or another. And there were 7 different options outlined in a study that we had done several years ago. It included investigating the North Ottawa water system, the NOW system, building our own plant, building our own well system, hooking to the city of Muskegon, a new contract with many different things.
Wouldn't that be hooking up rather than hooking?
Hooking up, yeah, with the city of Muskegon.
I don't think we really want to have the Fruitport Township involved in hooking.
In hooking with the city of Muskegon. And the one thing, as we negotiated this new contract with the city of Muskegon, there's language within this new contract, and basically it's a very simple, it's called a reconciliation clause within the contract that we, over long and arduous meetings, finally came to an agreement on to include this reconciliation agreement. And bottom line is, water produced, if it's produced and charged appropriately, it's the actual cost of the producing that water is what we should be paying as a wholesale rate. You simply take the actual expenses associated with it, which would include debt to keep the plant up and repairs and those types of things, and divide it by the total water produced, and that gives you a wholesale rate. Well, unfortunately, when you're using planned budgeted expenditures for the future, you can artificially inflate that and say, well, I just didn't spend that money. But that doesn't change the fact of what that rate was for the previous year.
And that's where the term reconciliation comes in.
At the end of every single year, once the city of Muskegon's audit is completed, the reconciliation clause kicks in, and then we take the actual expenses, divide it by the actual amount of water used, and determine what the rate should have been. And if we paid too much, we get a check back. If we pay too little, we have to write a check to the city of Muskegon. It makes everybody perfectly whole at the end of every single year.
Now let's compare this. Let's compare this with what you had, or at least currently have here with Muskegon Heights.
Sure.
You did not have this ability to do reconciliation.
No, and I'll give you an example. The rate went from 41.6 cents to 82.6 cents to 93.6 cents to $1.42 even cents over a 3-year period of time. We went from 41 to $1.42 over 3 years. they artificially inflate their capital improvement budget by over one. They put in their $1.2 million of capital improvements, and they only spent $300,000 last year. Okay. So there's an artificial inflation of $1 million in that budget that we have to pay a rate on, which is about 40 cents. On top of that, we have a 25% administrative surcharge that's added to our wholesale rate. So on that,
which is paid to Muskegon Heights,
which is paid directly to Muskegon Heights, which they can do whatever they would choose to do with it. That doesn't have to stay into the fund. The $1 million is supposed to stay in the water supply fund. But the 25% surcharge, they can do what they want. Well, if you think about it, if you charged me $1 million and then didn't spend it, I also have to pay $250,000 into your general fund on money you never spent.
Okay. So
it's poor language. And we didn't have a choice but to initiate a clause to get out of that contract. And again, the time clock that I started back 18 months ago wasn't a separation from the Heights. It was a termination of the existing contract, which left open the opportunity for us to renegotiate the contract with the city of Muskegon Heights. But they have been totally unwilling to even sit at the table with us. There's been apparently they just don't want to be customers of ours. We give them we'd agree to something and then they change to something else.
You're saying that those are comments in the Chronicle, in today's Muskegon Chronicle, by some of the leaders of Muskegon Heights. Yeah. In other words, you guys are being outrageous. You're unreasonable. Let me ask you two quick questions here, as we got to focus here a bit on some things. A cynic, and I am without any question a cynic, might say, hey, come on, Brian, this is just a bluff. You guys are just, you're finally, the Heights isn't going to bend until they really think you're going to leave. This is just a bluff. You guys are going to fold, and the Heights is going to fold, and you guys are going to come scurrying back without anybody making any change. How do you respond to that?
Absolutely not. The ink is going to hit the paper in a week, and we have already begun the preparations to the change to the city of Muskegon.
Who has to vote on this to make
all three boards?
What three
City
boards?
of Muskegon, Fruitport, and Norton Shores' councils all have to vote to approve this contract.
And to the best of your knowledge, there's little opposition?
There is a little, but not significantly enough. We've been enthralled in this battle for over almost a decade.
But you expect, like you say, in a week this is going to be a done deal. Legally.
Fruitport is taking this up on October 8th at its board meeting. The City of Muskegon's taking it up on October 9th at its open board meeting. City of Norton Shores is working on it in work session on October 9th, and will take it to their full board on October 16th.
Net to the people who, companies and individuals who are paying water bills. What will this do to their water bills?
It will, understand, there are 3 major capital improvement projects that are going to have to be done in Fruitport and Norton Shores, irregardless of whatever happens into the future. These would be costs that would be added to our existing contract, irregardless of what's going on. We are going to take care of those capital projects along with the capital project to connect to the city of Muskegon, and it will still drop the rate about 15 cents a thousand gallons. That this is our estimate, and we believe. I'm full believer that always underestimate your revenues, overestimate your expenditures. Okay, so you look like a hero when you come out in the tail end, and that's what we're doing here. We're estimating the expenditures on the high end. We're estimating the revenues on the low end, so that there's no surprises to our water users in the future. We fully expect the water rates to go down. It's not huge. It's not significant. I mean, for the average homeowner, it's probably their $90 bill will probably go down to $78 or something like that. A quarter. Yeah. I mean, it's 10%. I mean,
go buy a pizza.
Yeah, there you go. Per quarter.
Half a tank of gas.
But
Yeah.
I think the biggest impact this has is, one, Fruitport and North Shores are going to take care of some capital projects, which includes the building of a second water tower, which is absolutely necessary within the next 5 years. We're incorporating that in this process. But bottom line, we're looking at this as long-term rate stabilization. The more water
you're not going to get these 200% increases over 3 years.
Correct. The more water you can produce at the more efficient cost levels, the more stable the rate is going to be in the long haul. And this will include a cost, a decrease in the water cost for our customers. It will once it's completed, and this should have an impact on the city of Muskegon's other customers, like Muskegon Township, North Muskegon, Dalton.
The economies of scale.
The economies of scale should be applied out. How the city of Muskegon deals with the increase in the flows and how that impacts the other customers, I don't know. But again, we're back to the economy of scale here. This isn't a contract, that Fruitport and North Shores is. This is great for us. This is great for every water customer that's hooked up to this system for today, for tomorrow, and for the next 30 years as far as this contract is concerned.
A couple other questions. And number one, an observation which I really like, and I certainly hope the Muskegon Chronicle, who is giving it front page attention today, that you're making promises and you are saying, hey, check us out. It's one thing to have people say, this is what's going to happen. I certainly hope that the Chronicle, unlike what they've been doing with many of the promises by the county government and some of the other governments, they will hold your feet to the fire and review it and tell us how that all worked out.
Absolutely.
Let me ask you this, though. There's another problem. As people know, the city of Muskegon Heights has had some very serious and continuing financial problems. What are they going to do with this system they've got? What's going to happen?
I have a very simple answer to that question. We've tried. We've bent over backwards. We've extended the olive branch. We've worked so hard into trying to work with them, and they've absolutely refused. We had no choice but to do what's in the best interest of Fruitport citizens, Norton Shore citizens, and the system as a whole. And by joining the city of Muskegon, that was the best move, I think, for every citizen in Muskegon County that utilizes the water system. Now it's up to Muskegon Heights to step up to the plate and do what's right for their people. And that's going to require a communication and a negotiation between the city of Muskegon Heights and the city.
But can that system survive just on the Heights? I mean, it would seem to me the bankruptcy is going to be coming down the road, and maybe a need for an emergency manager.
Yeah, I'm not in a position to answer that question.
All righty. Look, we've got to move on to a few other things, and thank you. We're going to have you back, of course, in the future. Hey, the one thing I would like to very strongly recommend, and knowledge is power, the ballot coming up in November is going to be, as I've been told by County Clerk Nancy Waters, it is going to be 2 pages front and back in some instances. These election
in Fruitport, it is.
The ballot initiatives are very voluminous. If you have not done your homework, you're going to spend a lot of time reading in there. I believe the lines are going to be very long. I'm going to strongly recommend not just that you do your homework. I'm going to recommend that you vote absentee ballot in this election. Don't vote as soon as you get the ballot. Wait till the week before to either deliver or mail in your ballot. But the lines are going to be very long. You do not want to have done your homework, get to the ballot area and find out that, oh my golly, it's really too long. I'm just going to go home and take care of my family. So do your homework on that. And the way to do that is to call your municipality. Again, I'll be at Carmen's this week, Thursday only, from 2:30 or from 2 to 3:15, and we are always interested in talking with you about county politics, city. We'll even talk about some of the things that Brian talked about here.
Township.
Don't forget the township stuff. Don't forget, we do post the full audio of the show on EyeOnMuskegon.com on Sunday afternoons. Oscar gets us the video of the show. Typically comes up Monday-ish. Thanks again, Oscar, Brian, the Mackinac Center for providing all the background information, and Jack Spencer. Hey, next week we're going to talk about something that's dear to my heart. We're going to get into the photo ID wars. Is it really racist to ask an American to provide proof that they are an American citizen in order for them to vote? The Democrat Party pretty much says it is. If you demand that you are, in fact, a racist, our governor seems to agree with that also. So next week we'll get on to that. Listen to us on the web, and folks, you have a great week in our little piece of heaven. Next week we'll put the eye on you, Muskegon.
Pocket of my clothes, where you dat gum government. Oh, don't you know? Oh, don't you love them sometimes? Hey, boy. Sometime.
Hi, I'm Jenny Garth. Heart disease is something I live with every day. It runs in my family, and it took my dad's life. So I'm choosing to speak up, and so can you. Tell people how it's the #1 killer of women. Tell them one woman dies every minute from it, and that 80% of cardiac events in women may be prevented if you make the right choices today. Join American Heart Association's Go Red for Women. Speak up to save lives at goredforwomen.org.
I knew I had a problem.
I tried counting calories, eating and eating.
Nobody else could possibly understand.
We understand. We're Overeaters Anonymous, and we have helped thousands of people stop their compulsive eating and start living a healthy, rewarding life.
With OA, I am living again and loving it.
Start living the life you deserve with help from Overeaters Anonymous. Find us on the web at oa.org.
The Talk of Muskegon is News Talk 1090, WKBZ Muskegon, and heard 24 hours a day on WOOD HD2 Muskegon.
Good morning and welcome to the Sunday